All right, I believe this is streaming live. So trying something a little bit different this evening. Let's see if this works. And I'll also hit record here. There we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Let me just get this situated for you. There we go. All right. So this is the market recap for Monday, the 6th, as I think I've hit all record buttons. All right, so let's get to today's price action. Before we start anything, everything that we're going through is information for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So what I'd like to do in the beginning of these end of day videos is just kind of summarize the themes of the day. We'll look at a couple sectors, we'll look at a couple movers, and then we'll look at some trade setup. So what I've got highlighted in this spreadsheet, of course, is what I tend to look at as number one, the performance for the day of what the indices and sectors do, and to basically try to spot relative strength. What helps me to do that is looking at percentage change from the open, so I can kind of see where things were, what areas were sold, because like on a day like this, you could see that there's a lot more red on your screen today. There was definitely some weakness in the small caps today. IWM was down 1.2%. Just kind of interesting again, like I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with this stuff, but once again, like you're kind of taking some cues from what the bond market is doing. So TLT, and that's the first chart that we'll start with today. But TLT was down, right? Down 1%. So I thought this was interesting, and I covered this in the member video on over the weekend. Was that bonds, which had a big week, no doubt, a big week last week, and was one of the catalysts last week for such a move, for the move in the home builders, for the move in biotech, for the move in the ARC ETF, some of those names really rallied hard. And a lot of that was the move in bonds. But notice what happened here in TLT on Friday. We didn't close anywhere near the high of the day. So we actually finished down, they finished up on Friday, but it was a red candle for the day. And you could see today was down 1%. So here's what I'm referring to is just here's the 1 hour chart. Here's as high as we went on Friday. And here's where we are right now, which is just coming into the top of value for the week. Remember what these value areas tell you. And if you need a little bit more backup information about what the value areas tell you, you can go to, there's a link in this video. There's also pinned to my homepage on Twitter. There's also a description about what the value areas do. But this value area is based on all of last week's, because we're on the 1 hour chart. So the value area is always based on the previous period. In this case, it's last week. Right. So this is providing us, and it's roughly one standard deviation of all the activity from last week. So all the block trades, all the dark pool prints, which people love, all the algo trades, all the option trades where someone is hedging with stock, all of that gets grouped into that volume profile from last week, and we basically put one standard deviation around there. That's why it's all inclusive, right? In terms of what the value area gives you, and that's why 8671 is some pretty good resistance. So that's what I think is important to start with: is will we see bonds kind of hold some of those gains from last week? So far, we are, and I think that we want to kind of hold in here. If we don't, so for example, if we get another day like today where bonds sell off, take a look at some of the areas that did not do well today, right? Small caps were down 1.2%. So again, this is kind of simplifying things because bonds aren't the only thing that's going on. We're kind of looking at this in a vacuum. There's many other factors that happen. There's earnings, right? There could be geopolitical events, right? There could be 3 or 4 other different criteria. But to start off with, I think one of the factors that's taking place, which is affecting things, is bonds and the move in rates. And again, and look at what happened today in the solar stocks today. They sold off 3% from the open, from the open to finish down 1.8%. So they did start green on the day and they gave it back. Biotech, which is another area that's very sensitive to interest rates. You could see the performance that finished down 2.2%, sold off 2.6%. So Well, some of this may have been masked by what SPY did today and Qs. SPY and Qs both finished in the green today. So, not bad if, but depending on what you're positioning in, right? If you're positioning in a little bit more, I don't want to say safer things, but maybe some more larger cap, maybe larger cap tech. Healthcare did okay today. You could see tech was your number one area. Um, change from the open today. It was the only sector that I have on my spreadsheet that was up over 0.5%. So let's take a look at. I'm going to take a look at tech in just a second, but I skipped the indices. And I'll do SPY here, but I think we're we're at an interesting area in SPY. So if let's say, for example, that you were out all last week, or you were on vacation, right? Or you had some trades on, but you weren't watching very closely, and you're like, hey, okay, I kind of missed last week's move. What do we think is, because again, it's always about the road ahead, right? There's a lot of people on Twitter. I get it. It's their job to do victory laps and so forth. But really, what we want to stay concentrated is on the road ahead, not what happened last week or why, you do want to have some reasoning about why it happened, but there's too many people that are doing victory laps, right? We want to stay focused on what's going on ahead. Now, not so much what happened last week. So where are we right now in SPY? Well, so yes, the 80% rule did get completed, right? That was the first candle inside the value area, and this happened very rapidly, very quickly. We touched right where we are right now at the top of value, and notice there's a doji right at the top of value. So again, this is important because why? Because, well, this price action, this value area is based on all of last month's price action, right? So it does become significant, right? And if we can kind of hang in here, today was very much a digestion day. Some areas got a little bit ahead of themselves and a little bit overbought short term. It was one of the things that I talked about over the weekend in the McClellan summation, not so much the McClellan summation index, but the McClellan oscillator. Let's see if I can bring that up for you really quickly. Right, so the NIMO and the NAMO. Right, look at these things. Right, this is the weekly. Right, it just shows you. And again, I wouldn't. I'm not so sure I want to say that this is like, oh my God, we got overbought. Not, I think that we just need some digestion when you get that overbought that quickly. Because look, does this look like any other weekly candles here? No, I mean it was a tremendous move last week. So yeah, once you get into these levels up here, you probably want to cool down a little bit. So if we can kind of hang in here and stay above maybe the 50-day moving average, I think that would be pretty good. Also, if you look at where we are SPY on the 1-hour chart, right, you're going to see that we opened up just inside the value area for the week, and I would really watch this 43,629 for upside continuation. So for now, we just went sideways today, right? We tested some not lower levels, but we tested the bottom of value for today. We kind of did a double bottom for the day and moved basically right to where we started the day. So again, I think for now, like if not so great, of course, in the small caps, but they're more sensitive to what's going on in interest rates. But I think that this is perfectly fine to see us. And even if we wanted to, even if price wanted to do this another day or two, I think that would be fine too. Before a possible next leg higher. And I think a lot of market bulls are okay with that view. But we've got levels to watch, and that's 369.95 as well for the Qs. So you look at this chart, and I noticed a little bit of a difference, because if we look at this, right, kind of coming back into this kind of pennant, and you could draw a trend line down here. We're just kind of waiting to see if we can break the pattern of lower highs, right? Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And this could be another lower high, but no one has a crystal ball. Even though the breadth was so strong last week, I would be kind of thinking on that side too. But we're still inside the value area, and we still haven't taken out a previous high. Now, I mentioned I would talk about a couple sectors. Yes, XLK is starting to do something different. Now, a reminder with this ETF that XLK, right, is very top heavy. Yeah, there we go. Microsoft and Apple make up about 46-47% of this ETF. Then you also have Nvidia, Broadcom, Adobe, but they're all less than 5%. So really the performance is going to be heavily dictated. And that's the same thing, by the way, when you look at XLY. It's Amazon and it's Amazon and Tesla, and in XLC, the communications ETF, right? That's Meta and Google. They make, so there's a couple names that make up, there's two names in three of the big sectors. Even though communications isn't that big of a weight in the S&P, I still consider it pretty top heavy because they are big names in the Qs, right? So the XLK looks pretty good here. And again, it doesn't mean that it can't check back here, but at least it's making it made a new closing move above this prior peak. And if you look at the weekly chart too, right, it's starting to make that move out of this pennant type pattern. So that's what I think is pretty interesting. And I think it's okay to stick with the leaders right now. There's a couple other names that I think are going to be very interesting, right? Nvidia, of course, is a big name, right? This name continues to see all kinds of call activity, right? It's close, right? It's trying to get over these previous peaks, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Nvidia goes sideways for a while because it has gone up a lot this year, right? And maybe it sees some other areas, some other areas do pretty well. A couple names I always like to talk about, here's like how we start the week is with our watch list, right? I carry over some names from the previous week. Those areas really, there's a couple like Celsius did okay today. Celsius is going to report earnings tomorrow, by the way, and they're implying a pretty decent move. I thought this was interesting. This name was up like over 4% to start the day. So it did take out some virgin point of controls. And I would rather see the name take them out before earnings than on earnings, right? Notice where we got the highs of the day. I thought that was on the 5. Yep, there it is. So nice comeback there at the end of the day. But yeah, there was some profit taking after that type of move. So it's kind of sets it up now that virgin point of control is taken out. So if it has some stellar earnings to it, where could this go to? Possibly 199. This 199 lines up. And again, I'm not making, they're going to have to deliver, right? But that 199 lines up on multiple time frames. Right, so that's Celsius for tomorrow. Again, they're going to have to crush their numbers, but the way that names have been running, the last, what they did last week, like a DoorDash or Roku, right, and DraftKings, which had nice move to, I did buy some DraftKings today, because I played last week. I played DoorDash for a continuation move, and that worked pretty well. And by the way, DoorDash, which I added to my watch list. So I played this on Friday for continuation. I had some calls in this, and I got out before the close on Friday because they were short-term calls. But now it's kind of setting up. It might set up again, right? And as long as it stays above 88, might be a trade there in DoorDash. All right, nice. And by the way, like this is what's good about, this name was down, I think, like at 4.2% at one point today. And that's not a bad thing, right? Because they're going to give you some opportunities. And this is going to be interesting with Uber reporting tomorrow morning too, because Uber, they have some businesses that kind of cross over a little bit, right? Uber Eats and so forth. They do a delivery business too. So I think that's going to be also an interesting quarter. Both of those names, Celsius and Uber, report tomorrow morning. DraftKings, where do I think DraftKings can get to? I think it could get up to 35.96, right? Another version point of control. So these are great for taking targets. I did this last week with Wingstop. Went right up to this version point of control, again, right after earnings. So again, not being greedy here, understanding where there's, overhead supply, even though this thing's, so I would expect some consolidation at this point, and maybe it will set up again. Other names on our watch list I added to, so here, like I said, I added Dash today. Elf had a really nice day today too. We could review that one. And Dell, which I did not play this today, but Dell had a nice break higher was waiting for this name for a while to do this. I just didn't want to take another trade on it because I did add some XLK. My thought, and kind of probably end on this note, but at this point, right? And obviously this is a big move from the lows, but I think it's best to have some exposure in the strong areas of the market with the ability to kind of add on a dip. So, you have to kind of get in at some point, right? And I think a starter position and so forth after these moves, unless we have some other volatility this week, I don't know what's going to, obviously, I don't know what's going to cause the volatility. We don't have a lot of economics this week, right? But we do have a lot of Fed speakers. So maybe that will drive it, right? Or if you look at what the bond auctions are this week, we've got a healthy amount of bond auctions, right? Besides these T-bills tomorrow, we're going to get a 3-year bond auction, right? And then on Wednesday, we're going to get a 10-year. And then on Thursday, we're going to get I believe that's Thursday, right? Today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah. We should get a 30-year bond auction. So it could be something like that. But again, I don't like to play this game too much. I like to know where the events are, right? And then, of course, we also have a lot of Fed speakers this week. But I don't really think, I think the bond auctions will be more important, if I had to guess, than Powell's opening remarks, because I don't think they really want to say anything new. They want to see the data come down, right? I think that was the big message from last week, right? Is that there's no new, the big message was there is no message, right? That they're basically going to watch and observe, and if something jumps out, then they'll have to act, right? Either on the upside or the downside. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. Overall, besides some areas kind of going down like the small caps, I think if the bonds can kind of hold in here, right, then I think that this is pretty good price action. And some digestion is definitely needed. All right, guys, that is it for today's market recap. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.